So we've been talking about the New York Times poll that has come out, and give me a snapshot of that just to recap, Stu.
Basically, it was a poll of swing states, which in my view is a better way of doing these polls than like a national number, because in reality we all know that Donald Trump is going to win Idaho, and the fact that they can pull a few votes out of that to make it a national number isn't all that important.
I'm worried about Texas, quite honestly. Lots of new people in Texas. If there's any kind of fraud in this state, and by the way, look, they're challenging Ted Cruz.
Well, they challenged Ted Cruz before, and he won.
Yeah,
right?
but
Beto O'Rourke and threw more money at it than you could ever imagine, and he still lost. Again, and when it comes to the fraud thing, look, that's almost a separate topic, right? Like if you're,
yes.
I'm looking at, you can only look at this at what's actually going to happen.
Sure.
If they do some trickery, what are you going to do? There's no way you can predict that. But when it comes to these 6 states, you have a situation where Joe Biden is losing 5 of them, and by some of them very large margins. Nevada by 10 to Donald Trump. Now, Nevada of these swing states is probably one of the more difficult ones for Republicans to win. It's one of the more blue states out of these. Georgia, you have Trump by 6. Arizona, Trump by 5. Michigan, Trump by 5. Pennsylvania, Trump by 4. If Donald Trump wins Pennsylvania by 4 points, he's going to win the election.
Yes.
And then finally, Wisconsin, which is actually polled, has been one of those states that has in polling been off more than almost every other state. Almost always, Wisconsin seems to look more positive for Democrats, and it winds up being in the actual election, and that's important to remember. But Wisconsin here was Biden +2. Now, the other candidates, they did DeSantis and Haley in these polls as well. Both DeSantis and Haley win Wisconsin comfortably, actually. And neither DeSantis or Haley lose any state against Joe Biden, any of these 6. That has not been something that's been talked about as much. There are 2 states in which DeSantis is even with Joe Biden, but both Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis either win or are tied in all 6 of these states.
This is the most bizarre, just the most bizarre primary I've ever seen in my lifetime.
So weird.
I mean, it is. You've got a guy who is. They're doing everything they can to put him in jail. He may be in jail by the time the election comes around. And I don't honestly know if that's going to help or hurt him. I really don't know. It's crazy. Think of that. Just that.
Yeah, all the things that are strange, right? You have a guy who may go to prison, right? It may help him. It may hurt him. The leading candidate is not participating in the debates. That's a weird thing, right?
Yeah.
The leading candidate is a former president of the United States. That's really weird, right? Like when it's not in consecutive terms, like it's happened, but it's pretty odd. You have on the Democratic side, a guy that is overwhelmingly disliked by his own voters. In this poll, more than half of Biden's voters say he's too old to be president.
Listen to this. His approval on the economy in the battleground states, his approval is 39%.
That's catastrophic.
With 57% disapproving. CBS and I think it was CNN just took a poll about are we in the wrong direction, right direction. 74 and in one poll and 75% in another poll say we're on the wrong track. That's historic. He has 9% strong approval on the economy and 48% registering strong disapproval. It's worse than a 5-to-1 ratio of strong, anti on the economy. 5-to-1. Also, separate polling for Gallup going back 7 decades. Republicans have never before enjoyed a larger edge on the primary issue of the day, the economy. 7 decades, 70 years. They've not seen polling like this.
Not even through Reagan.
Yeah.
Think about that.
40% of people that are polled right now say They're afraid their income is not going to be able to cover the house and the food and everything else because of inflation. And they know who's responsible. They are blaming it on Bidenomics. Real incomes, declining real incomes make the staples of life difficult to finance, and housing affordability has never been worse. This is according to Goldman Sachs. The first time in history, the average apartment rent is $2,000 a month. The average apartment, up from $1,600 when Biden took office. Battleground state voters overwhelmingly blame poor policies for this financial squeeze. 71% now say it's government policy that has contributed to this rise in rent, with 50% blaming the government a great deal. That's pretty significant.
Yeah, I'd say it is. And when you look at the economy, there's some interesting breakdowns when you look at the economy. They're all bad for Biden. There's nothing there. Even people who didn't like Trump are saying, well, look, at least the economy was good when he was president. If you go back, Glenn, 30 or 40 years, the only two times that people were really optimistic on the economy overall were like 1998 to 2000. The end of that of the Clinton era when the internet was kicking in,
correct,
right before the recession that, by the way, started when Clinton was president. But people didn't know that during the election. And then secondarily was the period 2017 to 2019, or excuse me, 2018 to March 2020 is really the cutoff. Well, was March 2020.
We talked about it. Everything was going so well that only some catastrophic event at the end of his term, and lo and behold,
we did see one.
A catastrophic event.
Yeah, listen to this guy. This is an interesting breakdown from the Times on the economy. A pound of bacon costs an average of $7.08 in the U.S., 21% more than when Biden took office.
21%.
The price of coffee beans has risen 33%. A gallon of gas is 72% more expensive. And because inflation affects everyone, it can damage the public mood more than almost anything else. And in parentheses, yes, the inflation has fallen sharply this year, but most prices have not fallen. Only their rate of increase has. This is something we've made a point on this 100 times, but you could see they're like trying to spoon feed this to their actual Democratic audience here and saying, hey, the reason why this stuff isn't working here is the rate might be coming down a little bit, but the prices are still increasing. It's a rate of increase. Mm-hmm. But listen to I thought this was fascinating. A president can't do much to bring down prices in the short term. Yet Biden has taken steps to reduce energy prices. He approved, and again, this is a Democrat talking to other Democrats. Think of it in that perspective.
All right, so we're in Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah. He approved an enormous new oil project on federal land in Alaska while enacting billions of dollars of subsidies for clean energy. Now, again, we know that doesn't bring down, but the Alaska thing is kind of interesting. He has been strangely unwilling to brag about the Alaska project, as Matthew Iglesias noted in a recent Substack newsletter. Biden seems more focused on avoiding criticism from climate activists than on winning over swing voters who can help reelect arguably the most climate-friendly president ever. Again, it's Democrats speaking to Democrats. Ignore some of the context here.
My eyes are bleeding.
But it's interesting,
I feel like the guy in Casino Royale where blood is just trickling out of the side of my eye, But
I mean, if you think about it from just a political standpoint, you have this one thing in Alaska. You'd think in this moment, you're touting that to swing states, right? You're going crazy, making it do a much bigger deal than it actually is. There's a similar dynamic on immigration. Undocumented migration into the U.S. has surged after Biden took office, partly in response to his welcoming campaign rhetoric. That's one way to put it.
Listen to that.
And mainly...
That's Democrats to Democrats.
Yeah.
They don't say that mainstream.
No.
What rhetoric? We were not inviting them.
What are you talking about?
Sent a strong message. Yeah,
Many Americans are unhappy about the surge, although Biden has since taken steps to reduce the surge. Again, not how I would describe it. However, although Biden has since taken steps to reduce the surge, he rarely emphasizes these popular steps. These are steps that poll well with the American people. He seems more focused on progressive activists than swing voters.
Yes.
So what does that mean, Glenn? Why wouldn't he politically speaking, go to the middle, say, I swear I'm doing stuff. I know you don't see it, but I swear I'm doing it. Instead, he's worried about criticism from crazy left-wing activists.
Because crazy left-wing activists put him into office. It was the unions and the crazy left-wing advocates that are the ones who are also backing him up with muscle. That's why he's now saying, Israel, you should be nicer to Hamas. We maybe you should slow down, because he's lost or in danger of losing the people that are behind. Did you notice the signs? Did anybody look at the signs that were on the streets of Washington, D.C. and New York and every place else this weekend?
You're not talking about the ones where they were painting Stars of David on the buildings, right?
No.
Okay,
where they
good.
killed that woman? Yeah, no. No, I'm talking about the printed signs about, a free Palestine. The bottom of it, go look at the pictures. Provided by the Socialist Workers' Party. Okay? This is a socialist-run thing. So you've got all of that wrapped up into the Palestinian thing. He cannot afford to lose his muscle. He can't afford to lose those advocates, because those are the strongest. What's going to happen is you're going to have those people, or you're going to have the people who are like, you know what, I'm not even going to vote. Because that's the way, I think that's the way your supporters are getting on Biden. If they don't flip, they're just not motivated, because he's not doing anything good for them.
How much of this is Biden guarding his flank for a challenger like a Gavin Newsom, like someone else who's going to come out of the woodwork and say,
I think a great deal of it. A great deal. Listen to this from Axelrod. He said,
David Axelrod, the former, what was he? Obama administration official.
Yeah.
I don't remember his exact role.
It's very late to change horses, and a lot will happen in the next year that no one can predict. And Biden's team says his resolve is firm to run. I'm justly proud of his accomplishments. However, his poll numbers send tremors of doubt, not bedwetting, legitimate doubt. Trump is a dangerous, unhinged demagogue whose brazen disdain for the rules, norms, laws, and institution or democracy should be disqualifying. But the stakes of miscalculation here are too dramatic to ignore. Only Joe Biden can make this decision. If he continues to run, he will be the nominee of the Democratic Party. What he needs to decide is whether that is wise, whether it is in his best interest or the country's.
Wow.
He's got to have somebody behind him.
He's a big, group of connections inside the Democratic Party. This isn't just some guy saying this. This is a big deal.
This is Axelrod.
Yeah.
This is Axelrod.